Okay guys, let's talk paracord bracelets. Now I like to have a real nice finished end, and I'm going to be making one of these bracelets for my daughter. The nice thing about this bracelet is you can use this pattern or you can flip it over and have that pattern. Totally flexible. The closure on this particular bracelet I like quite a bit. Now this is a Chinese button knot, and there's a loop, and basically the button knot slips through that loop and that's what holds it in place. Pretty easy to take off, and it's very secure. And again, if you want to change that pattern, you just flip it over and then you have a different pattern. So we're going to be making one of those for Kelsey tonight. Now there's other closures that you can use, of course, on paracord bracelets. This is one of the very common ones, just an overhand knot on the end and then a loop that's sticking out on the bracelet end that goes like that. And one of the more common ones that I remember when I was in the military is we used to take a button off of an old pair of BDUs and take the center core was either type 1 paracord, which is what this is, or tether cord, and you'd make a loop, and that button would slide through the loop, and that makes a very nice closure. This knot that you're seeing here is a modified blood knot, and I like the way it lays flat on the cord. It makes a very nice, clean bracelet. The other thing that we would use besides this type 1 paracord is just a piece of type 3 paracord with the core stripped out, and then you take a pair of scissors and you would cut it on a sharp angle, which would make a needle point. Hopefully you can see that, and that would allow you to thread the paracord through the holes in the BDU button. But that really makes a nice closure as well. Now I'm going to be making the bracelet for Kelsey tonight using this Chinese button knot, and I will give you a link for that. It's kind of a challenging little knot to tie, but it's you can think of it as a miniature monkey's fist, and at the end of a double set of cord that terminates in a nice loop, and then there's that blood knot. Now I've not finished this yet. I just sized it to her wrist, and I'll clip these ends off, and then what I do is I take a this is just a butane lighter, but on a nozzle for lighting a charcoal barbecue, and I use that to melt these tips, and then I will use a piece of glass on the countertop and just roll it flat, and that gives you this real nice polished closure on this loop. And I just think that makes a very nice, smart looking bracelet with a closure that's really not too obtrusive, a little bit less obtrusive than the you'll notice those knots that are on the end of a paracord bracelet that is kind of bulky with type 3 paracord with the center fibers still in the, or strands still in the sheath, and that makes a fairly large knot. Now there's nothing wrong with it, but this just is a little smaller profile, and I think a little less obtrusive if you look at those side by side. So that's how I like to make these. All right, so we're just going to start off by trimming these flush with that blood knot. Now it goes without saying, this extra cord, of course, is very useful for making zipper pulls and little short lanyards and that sort of thing, so I always save this. Now we're going to just gently melt the end, and then I just roll it on the glass, and that makes a nice smooth finish. Alright, so we've got a nice loop right there, and this will be the core that I will make Kelsey's bracelet. And again, that's a loop and a nice little Chinese button knot. Okay, now we're going to mix it up a bit. Remember, traditionally we are making these out of paracord, 550 cord. It's really type 3 paracord. I think there's 5 different types, but this is the 550 pound, and that's why it goes by the name of 550 cord. And it basically is a kern mantle rope with a sheath and 7 strands on the inside. Kelsey's very happy with this black, but she also was interested in this blue and purple kern mantle rope that I got from REI. And what I like to do is I like to take the inner core out, which makes a little softer bracelet, and it's a little more flexible. And in this particular bracelet there is 7 feet of flat stripped 550 cord. So we're going to do the same thing for Kelsey, but we are going to use blue and purple kern mantle rope from REI. Okay, we have an appropriate length of the cord, and I'm going to pull this center core out. Okay, there's the inner core. You can certainly save that for something. I really haven't found a use except if you're out in the field and you needed it, but I just throw this away. Next step is we want to clean up this frayed end right here. Just going to clip that off, and we'll use the lighter to just melt that end. And we've got 2 nicely secured ends. Okay, when you're ready to braid your bracelet, I take the core, so that's the button knot in the loop, and I secure one end with another loop of paracord, and that is secured to a chair rail on my kitchen table, and I've got the other end secured with the Chinese button knot. That's pulling backwards, and that's tied to the leg of the kitchen table. Okay, that just keeps your core straight. Now you just take a little block of wood, slip it under that end, and another one under this end, and we're ready to go. Now we're going to start at this end and weave down towards the button knot. Here's one other little thing that I do that might be a little bit different is I put my cord in a little tub of hot water, let it soak for a little bit, and then I'll take it out. I'll stretch it through my fingers like that to get most of the water out, and then I'll roll it up in a paper towel to dry it so it's almost damp. Makes it a little bit easier to work with. Okay, we're going to roll this up in a paper towel. And I just squeeze it and get most of the water out. Okay, now all you need to do is find the middle. We have the middle and 2 ends. We're going to take the middle and place it under our core. And with the right hand side we're going to make an S. Now that top part of the S is what we're interested in, this piece right here. If you remember three words, over, over, and under, you're going to do this knot without a problem. So this cord goes over, the one on the left goes over and under the core. And that little loop right there is where this end comes up. And that's the start of this knot. Now you just dress it down nicely. You'll notice that you have an up and one that's going 90 degrees. We're going to take the 90 degrees, and again we're going to cross over, and then this one goes over and then under the core and through the loop on the opposite side. So if you just remember over, over, under, you're going to do fine, and then dress this knot down nice and tight. I find it's helpful to pull the one that's going up in that up direction and pull the one that's going sideways, sideways. But just dress that knot nicely. And you've got, remember, a rope that's going up and a one that's going across. The one that's going across is going to go over, and the one that's going up is going to go over, and then it's going to go under, and we're going to take that end and come up through that loop. Okay, I'm going to do one more of those, and then I'm going to turn the camera off and we'll pick it up as I get down to the very end. So remember, each time you're going to get a nice bracelet if you just dress those ends very nicely. So again, we have a rope that's aiming up and an end that's coming off. The one that's going off crosses over the core. The one that's going up crosses over the one that crossed over, and the end is going to go under and through that loop on the opposite side. And you just pull that tight. And again, just dress that knot nice and tight. Make sure it's nice and even. Putting a little time in at this point will pay off later on. Now the nice thing about this, as I go, I'm going to just slide this down the core towards that end, and I'm working in this direction towards the Chinese button knot. All right, I'm going to turn this off and we'll pick it up when I'm down at the end. All right, well, we're done. There's the bracelet, and it has the little Chinese button knot and a little loop, which makes a nice closure and actually pretty slim profile. And there's a little different take on the typical paracord bracelet, a little different color, although Kelsey would have been very happy with this mil-spec black. All right, now I'm all done. I dressed those knots down, and the way I finish these is just the typical way. We're going to trim the end. And then I'm going to melt the end, and then I like to just quickly seal it on either a piece of glass or this wood works well as a surface. Now you'll notice that I left just the slightest amount at the end of that button knot, and that allows the loop to have a place to seat. And I sized the loop to fit the Chinese button knot. And again, I finished the loop with a reverse blood knot where it comes out in the center instead of the ends, and I melted that so it makes a nice little barrel. And that's a nice closure and a nice little bracelet. Right, let's give this to Kels. Here she comes.
Hello.
I love Roma. All right, well, there's your bracelet.
Cool.
How does that little button knot work for you before? Pretty easy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
What do you think?
I like it.
Good fit?
Yes.
I like the color on you.
I like it.
Matches the other little bracelets. All right.
Good.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay, there is a paracord bracelet with a Chinese button knot and a loop. There's the center core of a bracelet with a BDU button, again using type 1 paracord or tether cord. And then here is a little takeoff on that using colored 3mm kern mantle rope from REI, again with a Chinese button knot and a loop.